that, I'm going to pass it off to Felicia Hamilton Clark.
Thank everybody for viewing tonight again. I hope you're returning, or if you're new, I hope that we say something tonight that will make a major impact on your lives. I am an advocate, activist. I'm a mother of 4 Black boys. And tonight we're going to discuss how it feels being a Black woman in the workforce. And so the first question tonight is, tell us about an experience you've had when you felt like your skin color and or your gender affected how you were treated at work. Janice will start.
So I'm Janice. I was born and raised in Jamaica. I moved here a couple years ago. I am the mother of a 6-year-old Black boy, Mateo, and I am all about, empowering women. I'm all about just having a voice and having our voices heard. It's important that we acknowledge that the job market is aimed at giving whites an advantage. It is not a job market where it's an equal opportunity for African American or Blacks. And my personal experience with that is it was twice as hard for me because one, I had to prove myself as a person of color, and I also had to prove myself as an immigrant. So coming here, I had to work 3 times as hard to say, hey, I am capable. Here are my qualifications. I have the credentials to do this. Where I was put up against people who they were looking at the experience and like, okay, how am I gonna match your experience? But I'm like, my education speaks for itself. The job that I do, there's a lot of Caucasian women. And so in my district, I find myself being the only Black person. So for me, introducing myself to a district manager, I have to off the bat come up with a game plan. Like, what is my aim? What is my goal for advancement? So I think it's not an equal opportunity because if you take a look at the unemployment rate, Blacks have higher unemployment rates. So there's so many things that we're set at a disadvantage.
Tavia?
So hi, my name is Tavia Anderson, and I am a native of Chicago, Illinois. I've been here in the Twin Cities now for 24 years. I am a returning panelist, and I'm the mother of 3 Black sons. I have 6 Black grandsons, as well as 3 Black brothers. So about the age of 14 or 15, my very first job was at a grocery market. I applied for a cashier position, which lasted about 2 weeks. So that position went to being a bagger. So at that point, I realized like I had no control of the positions that I were applying for, that they would place me anywhere because of the color of my skin. And at that time, I vowed that I would become my own boss, to have control of my own positions, and that I did. So at an early age, I knew I would be an entrepreneur because I just felt like I would never be in a position where no one would tell me, oh, you need to be here at this time. If you're not here at this time, you no longer have a job. So, that just inspired me to be in control and not have to endure a lot of the experience that you ladies that's in the corporate world experience, because I saw it on at an early age. But I had to have jobs to fund my dream. So I did banking, I've worked in bank vaults, even working in the bank vault, I felt like I was always under the radar just because I was a Black woman working in that department. Bank vaults, they got so much personal and valuables there. And I just felt like I was always having the police on my back just because of my skin. I just felt like they were watching me closely because the color of my skin, worrying, just like we go to department stores, you feel like we're being watched the most because of the color of our skin. We might steal something or we're taking something that don't belong to us.
Thank you for that, sharing that experience. Did anyone else have anything to share? Renee, go ahead.
I want to talk about an experience working in corporate America when I worked at US Bank. There was a position that came open in St. Paul in another bank for the same position but with a couple of more perks added to it that would increase my pay and add extra medical benefits. And so I took the position. And one of the things that was in their bio, and this was during the era where they were getting rid of discrimination. And so they had to have a certain amount of ethnicity within their corporation. And so the vision and the buy statement would say that, you know, we're welcoming, you know, to other diverse races. And so I accepted the position. I came into the job. One of the things that I experienced there was that it was not an open environment. It was still a white culture environment. It was never welcomed of another ethnicity having a voice to be able to help and assist. Now, mind you, I came in as a head teller. I had very great detailed skills in what I did. And I was fortunate to be able to gather and capture new things that they were doing. But being in there, the atmosphere and the people, you know, would always critique my work. So I began to notice and understand prejudice. I began to understand people's biases. And one of the things that it made me feel was that I never had human rights while I was there at the job.
I wanted to share an experience that I had. So in 1998, I came to Minnesota with Northwest Airlines. I was hired as one of the first female leads in Northwest Airlines at the time. In 1994, I got hired on with the company because of affirmative action. They were now hiring people of color, and they were hiring women. Because prior to my joining Northwest Airlines, women did not work on the ramp. Those are people that are handling the baggage on the ground. Ground services was all men up until 1994 when I got hired with another group of women. And so by 1998, in 4 years, I had gained enough seniority to apply for a lead position at the airline, and that was frowned upon. I had been told that a woman would never carry the radio on the ramp, and so I challenged that belief, and I did it for the position, and I got the job because at the time there was a female manager who was ground services manager over the whole region. And so when I got the position, I walked into a male-dominant workforce, white men. Northwest Airlines had been discriminating against Blacks in Minnesota, and they had a class action suit lodged against them. And so here I am, I'm coming in with what I would describe as a double bubble. I'm Black and I'm female. And I knew nothing about airplanes because at the time, a lot of Black people just didn't fly. They have, you know, idiosyncrasies that say they don't fly, you know. And so here it is now, I have this opportunity to fly. My parents can fly, my in-laws can fly, my children can fly, we're all flying. And so I really wanted this job because I wanted to experience travel. I had been in Chicago all my life, and here was an opportunity for not only me to be able to travel, but also to live in different places. And so I took that opportunity, and I moved to Memphis first. I gained a little seniority, and when that position opened up in Minnesota where I could become a lead, I took it. And so I was the first Black chief on Northwest Airlines ramp in 1998. And I would come home from work every night frustrated because these men gave me every problem you could imagine. And even the women that were in the workforce with me who recognized that I was getting battered because I'm a woman and then I'm a Black woman, they didn't do anything to step up and help. You know, I was just left to my own devices. And like you, Janice, I had to work 3 times as hard. I can remember an experience where I started at the airline and I knew that the bottom chief, the bottom lead, had to do the dirt job. So they threw me in the mailroom, and they had a device called the Wheel of Death, and it would be piled full of mail. And every shift would just fill this wheel up, and this wheel would clog up every night. For the midnight chief, who I was, the midnight lead, that was my position. I got the worst time slot, and I got the worst crew, and I got the worst job. But I took that job and I turned it around, where they had 10,000 parcels of mail. When they would come back in the morning, I'd have all that mail loaded and out at the aircraft ready to load. And I thought that would, you know, buy me a place in their respect among these men. But they just kept throwing more work at me, harder jobs at me. And I had this manager on the ramp who would come into my workspace every morning before I would check out, and he would stand behind me and he would fart. Yeah, he would fart. He would just blow it up, and it was like, I used to say he shits on me every day, right? And so I told my crew, I said, this guy comes in here and he just stands behind me and he farts. And they was like, you tripping. Yeah, you making that up. And then they noticed when I went on vacation that he didn't come down there the whole time. But as soon as I came back from vacation, he was there and he was doing it. And that's when everybody realized, okay, she ain't tripping. He does show up and he does blow the room up every time she's here. So I had that acknowledgement, but I also had the respect of my crew. So I started bidding for better positions, and I bid it to the tower. That is the highest place a ramp supervisor can work, is in the tower. And I'm the first woman to ever work the tower at Northwest Airlines. That's an elite position at the airport, working in the tower. And I was in the tower on 9/11 when those aircrafts crashed into a building. I was at the airline at that time, and I was working in the tower when those aircrafts crashed. And it was my unique job to locate everyone with a Muslim name on the ramp. We were all given 50 names, and all of us had the job of locating 50 passengers. And I thought, wow, this is kind of wrong, but the FBI demanded that they be detained and held until they were questioned, and then they were allowed to go where they were going. But the whole airline had been grounded. All the airlines were grounded. Everybody had no movement all around the country. And so when the president of the country, of the airline, came into our workplace 4 days later after we had been shut down, he had a special flight, brought him into the airport and brought him to the tower. You know, Richard Anderson was his name. And he looked at me and he said, I heard you found all your passengers. I want to thank you. And he held out his hand. He was like, but before he shook my hand, he said, if it was my right to do, I'd have them all lined up and shot. And so I withdrew my hand. It kind of threw me off. He's like, I said, why would you say that? He's like, well, you know, they served Ali, and I don't agree with that. And I just thought, well, like, wow, you know, you're talking about shooting somebody and lining them up, and I don't agree with that. So I didn't shake his hand. And so about 3 or 4 days later, I was called into the office, and I was asked, did you tell someone that because you're Black and you're female, that Northwest Airlines can't fire you? And so I took my ID off. I said, I don't know what this is, but I know what this is. And so I took my ID off, and my manager said, no, don't take your ID off. We're just questioning you. I said, I don't know. And I said, why would I tell anybody something like that? That's preposterous. I know that you will fire me. You're firing me now. He's like, no, we're not firing you. We need you to get a union rep, though. So I called the union rep, and the union rep was like, Felicia, don't worry about anything. This is just a questioning. I said, no, they're going to fire me. And a few minutes later, after the union rep had got there, the police walked in. And I looked at the union rep, and he looked at me. I said, I told you. the police walked in and the manager said, "We want her escorted out of here." And I was flabbergasted. They escorted me out of the airport by police, you know, like I was a criminal. Like this wasn't my job. They wanted to embarrass me. They wanted to take something for me. They wanted me to cry. They wanted to break me in some sort of way. And me giving them my ID willingly wasn't good enough. So they called the police. And then the union took on the job of trying to get me my job back. And after a year, they told me that they had exhausted all their opportunities. But I knew I had to do something. So I had gathered the evidence for myself and went to EEOC. And when I went to EEOC for Minnesota, I got that job back, and they fired me 2 more times. Yeah. And so it's just, I knew right then, you know, that it didn't matter how hard I work or how high I climb, they always had the opportunity to try to break me down and take something from me. And that was one of the hardest times in my life because I had just lost my son. After being off work for a year, my house was in jeopardy. So I lost my son, my job, and my house all in the same year. It was a hard time. And it was just because I was a Black female working hard to open a door for other women. They wanted to shut it, and they did. But I'm glad today that there are women in that workforce. There are chiefs. I would have had 26 years this year if I had not lost that job, had that job not been taken from me. I would have made 26 years on January 7th this year. So that's my experience. And yeah, I just think about it sometimes and I just shake my head. Just shake my head. It's just what it's, I had to accept that that's the way the world works. But did anyone else have anything to say about their experience? Go ahead, Yolanda.
I'm a D&I professional at a local corporation here in town. I think, you know, listen to everybody's stories. I think we're judged how we wear our hair, how we dress, how we talk. I think no matter how far we go, I think they want us to settle for what they give us. You know, I worked at a company for 11 years, and I started off as an admin. And as long as I was an admin, I had all the perks in the world, and, you know, I was their do girl. And the moment I started bidding and applying for other jobs, I became a problem to them. And I'll forget, I applied for a job, and before I could even hit submit, I got a message from HR saying, you know, I didn't qualify for the job because I didn't have a degree. And so I said, okay. But my manager at the time, he fought for me to get the job. So they gave me the job, but they paid me probably 30 or 40% less than the other people who were in that same role I was in. And how I found out was we were all in Vegas at a trade show, and we had gotten bonus checks, and they were going buying cars in Harley Davidson with their bonus checks. And my bonus was like $3,000 or $4,000. And I'm like, how could they buy a brand new Harley with this bonus check? And one of the guys, he was a white guy, he said, you know, I have a question for you. And he asked me how much was my bonus because he understood I was very puzzled by what they were doing with their bonuses. And he told me that his bonus was $27,000 after taxes. And he said, you know, that means that they're paying you way less than they're paying us, and we're all doing the same job. And when we got back to Minneapolis, I went right to HR and I said, hey, you know, I should get some kind of pay increase because, you know, I don't think I'm being paid fairly. I had typed it up. I had typed up my job responsibilities, what I was doing. And she told me that they would give me a 10% increase only. And again, she brought up I didn't have the degree. And I vowed that I'll never be put in that position by not having the degree. So I stayed there. I went back to school, got a bachelor's degree. They still didn't give me the money. They gave me another 10% raise, right? So they keep giving me 10% raises, but I'm still 30, 40%, which is like $30,000, $40,000 less than everybody else who had this same job. So then she told me the guys all had master's degrees, and that's why they couldn't give it to me. I went back, got an MBA. They still tried to give me another 10% raise. And then I found out that 7 of the people on our team of 8, none of them had master's degrees. So I was the only person on our team now with an MBA, not just a master's degree, an MBA. And so they hired another Black lady. She told me exactly what she was making. She was making $37,000 more than me for the same job, and I had more degrees than she did. So I started looking for other jobs. I'm like, I'm done with this. It's been 11 years. I went back to school, incurred all this debt. And then, do you know, once I got an offer letter, they asked to see it. And I thought, why would I give you my offer letter? But I said, okay, I'll give you the offer letter. They matched the offer that I had after I got a new job. And I still left. I took the other job because I feel like you didn't value me in the first place. But now that somebody else is going to show me value, now you want me to turn this job away. But, you know, I felt like I had gone to school. I had done everything. I had worked hard. I was traveling for this company, gone all the time, and I still wasn't valued. And it was all because I was a Black woman, and they could. I think it was just really down to they felt like I was in a position. They felt like, one, I wasn't going to go get the degree, so I showed them up. And one of the managers told me the day before my last day, he said, well, we never thought you were going to go and get those degrees, so good luck with your life, like it was a game. And and since then, they've tried to have me come back twice. They've had recruiters reach out and other people reach out. I wouldn't dare go back there. And I think when it comes to us, it doesn't matter what we do, we're always going to be considered less than at jobs.
Veronica has an experience she wants to share. Go
Yes,
ahead.
I do. My name is Veronica Sallis. I have 2 Black boys. I am a founder executive of Making Minnesota Right. I'm a returning panelist. So with that, I'm going to piggyback off what she said. When I've been working since I was 15 years old. And I experienced so much. I went to MCTC for the nursing program 2 years. And you first go, you start off as a CNA. And I was there and I was going and I was doing my LPN and all this stuff. But at the same time, I'm working. And so with that being said, I have experience with working with Abbott Northwestern Hospital in Minneapolis. And I worked also at Children's. And when I tell you that the way that they treat you when you're starting at the bottom coming up, is like you're the scum of the earth. You know, all the work load duties are put on you. The nurses are sitting back in the break room eating snacks, and they sit back and then they ask you about your life. And if you're not married and you have kids, they shun upon you, which I don't think should be discussed in the workplace because I'm not here to tell you about my life. And it's just so sad that we are put in these places where I'm constantly one of the few Black women in the room or in the office, period. And they judge us and other intangible things that makes me second guess myself at times. And with that being said, what I did was I said, this is not for me. Because for one, it wasn't that I was intimidated by the workload. I could do it and it was good and I liked it. But I said, you know, I'm not going to give nobody 80 hours of my life a week because I know I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a family. So that would make me turn away from the nursing thing. And I opened up my cleaning service, LG Enterprises of Minnesota. And I started as a contractor for a lady, a Caucasian lady here in the cities. And like Yolanda was saying, she didn't think that I was going to produce my business and make my business everything that it was. So now with me being a private contractor, just me working employee, now I'm a contractor for this lady. And she didn't want to pay me my money that I was worth. And it went from that to where now I got to take you to court and sit down with you because you're undervaluing me and not giving me the things that I need because you're not thinking I'm capable of producing the documentation and the things that I told you I was going to do. And when I done it and I took this lady to court for City Hall for money, she didn't want to pay me and I won. And she wanted me to bring her back to court because this is her, once again, trying to devalue me, discredit me, didn't think I was capable of doing the things that I've done. She said because I sued her personally and not the company, she wanted to come back. When the judge was ready to make a decision, and the judge was like, "Are you serious?" And she wanted me to really bring her back and sue the company instead of suing her personally. And I was just like, this is just disgusting. This is the last thing that I think we should deal with. And I'm just like, why can't we be all on one accord with each other and help each other come and tell people things that they don't know instead of discredit from them and devalue them and put them down? Because it makes us as Black women second guess ourselves. But some women are not strong enough when they second guess themselves to make the decisions like myself and Tavia has made to become entrepreneurs. Because the decisions that they make and the words that they choose and the way that they choose to treat us, that's why I said, hey, this is not for me. I'm not going to keep bumping heads with these same ongoing problems in the community. This needs to stop. And I'm grateful that we do have this panel going on so we can bring awareness to these problems and we can make a change. From one experience, I was just working at my job before the one I'm at now. And the owner, she's a really good lady. She's a beautiful person, but we grew a relationship. And so I'm bringing this up because it was funny to us, and she's a great person. She's a friend of mine. I can say I would like to call her a friend or acquaintance, associate. So she was like, she met her husband at the place, and she was like going to school she was a paralegal or something, and she met her husband. And I was like, one day we talking, so I said, everybody don't get this happy-go-lucky fairy tale that you Caucasian women get. I say, we have to kiss a couple of frogs before we get our prince. And she laughed. And I'm so glad to say that I had that experience with her because she really had no clue or idea of the things that we go through because she's this woman out here in Minnetonka living her best life, So she didn't have a clue in the world. Like, it's really a struggle, and not only at home in our neighborhood, our community, but we have a struggle in our workplace because they come from these secluded homes and they don't even really have a clue of what it is that we deal with in our culture with our family and our men, less known work. So that's why I said we're social outsiders to them. They don't have a clue. And the panel is giving us the way to open these guys' eyes. Like I told her, we all don't get these prints on our first time. We kiss a couple of frogs. And, we can all laugh about that because that makes us the women who we are today.
Janice, how about you? Would you like to give us some sort of thing that people can do to create this change?
Oh, absolutely. I had time to think about it. And as an employer, I think the biggest challenge or the biggest opportunity is that employees are given a deeper understanding of the benefits of what an inclusive culture and work environment looks like. Mm-hmm. Because when you have that diverse workplace, it benefits everyone. Because if it's a diverse workplace, then I'm going to want to be at work. I'm going to want to show up and perform. And when I win, we all win. And then your company, your organization, your work structure is just as strong as your weakest link. So if I am included, then I am going to want to perform. And then the next thing that I think that should be addressed is have an open door policy where if there is a situation that it is addressed immediately. How many times do we hear of cases where there's discrimination or racism or privilege and it's been handled by HR, but it gets swept under the rug because there's not sufficient evidence.
Exactly.
So I think that having that transparency and having that clearance, that transparency across the board and hire people based on their skills, their experience, their work ethics, and their values instead of a face, a color, or gender.
That's right. So Veronica, what do you have to add to that?
Take initiative, give credit where it's due, provide honest feedback, and check for bias.
How about you, Yolanda? What can change the workplace?
I think meeting people where they are. And so when I say that, I think for Black women, a lot of us are curvy. We have, you know, different features than you are. So a pair of pants is going to fit me different than it fits you. So even though I'm not trying to come to work being sexy, it's just is what it is, you know, or blouses and just different things. And I think accepting people where they are and how they come. And like Janice said, well, we're based on our skill set. You know, like even now in the workplace, it's a struggle when you're trying to climb up in corporate America. You're always going to be judged by your hair, you know, how you dress. So it's, for us, I think it's a little more than just our skin color for women. And even men, if you lock your hair, if you know, have an afro, there's so many other intricacies with that policies within the workplace. You know, a lot of companies had a thing in the policy about certain hairstyles that were only for African Americans. So I think we have to really think about, how do we embrace inclusivity when it comes to togetherness on cultural aspects, not just racial. And I think a lot of companies focus on skin color, but then it's about us fitting their norm of what that means. And I think we have to open that up some to fit in different aspects of that. You know, I think if you think about the skin color, that's just not the only way that they've discriminated against minorities in general. And so I think we have to have those real conversations, you know, inside the boardrooms, inside judicial branches. You know, even when you think about when you go to court, or like right now, there are people who work in courtrooms who are told they can't wear braids. Like there's a lawsuit right here in Minnesota at the 4th Judicial Branch that the court reporters cannot wear their hair locked, braided, twisted. Those are things that are part of who we are, you know. And so now they have to change who they are at work. And so there's lots of things like that that just are not being spoken about. And I think we have to start talking about those things.
I think to make the workplace more inclusive is to eliminate the exclusive behaviors that have been in the workplaces for many of years. Okay, and that's just starting with being more welcoming of women of color. You know, stop acting as if we're invisible. You know, I've been in workplaces where they won't even give us eye contact, let alone speak to us. Like, you know, like they're scared of us when passing. You know, be more receptive of having conversations in the common areas, in the work areas. Stop sometimes and just have a conversation. It's like, okay, we're in a workspace for a year. So you know that we've been here for a year. It's okay to have a conversation. Ask how you're doing. Give us eye contact. Say hello. You might realize we have a whole lot of things in common. You know, speak up when your colleagues are saying racial hidden slurs in your personal settings. Speak up when people in your space is showing racism of any form. From allowing the society to be declared as the superior class of white superiors, to put your friends in position to demote women of color who equally qualify. To show equality in the workplace and eliminate their personal gain for self-growth by demoting women of color based off our skin tones, and to respect us as an equal and a whole human race.